بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Alhamdulillah. Yesterday we spoke and we looked at the migration of the Prophet ﷺ, his hijrah from Mecca to Medina with his companion Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now today we will look at the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ into Madinatul Munawwara along with Abu Bakr. And so, as we mentioned yesterday, that when the Prophet ﷺ, when he was on his journey to Medina, that the Quraysh had set out after him and they had placed a bounty that anybody that kills him, they would get the reward of the blood money of 2 individuals, which is 200 camels. And so they sent trackers to look for the Prophet ﷺ, and then as we mentioned as well, that Suraka who came out and followed the Prophet ﷺ, and he caught up with the Prophet ﷺ, and when he got near that, his horse would throw him off, and then he would get back on and his horse would throw him off, and it did this 3 times. Then on the third, a sandstorm came in front of him and he wasn't able to see, and he realized that this is something not ordinary and there's something protecting this man. And so he calls out to the Prophet ﷺ, he says, I come to you in peace. And they mentioned that in regards to Suraka, that the Prophet ﷺ said to him that, O Suraka, what about you the day that you wear the bracelets of Kisra, that you'll be wearing the bracelets of the palaces of Persia? And so Suraka was, he didn't, at the time he thought, what's the Prophet ﷺ talking about? I'm going to wear the bracelets of Kisra. And then we see that later on in the Khilafah of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, at the Battle of Qadisiyah, when Sayyidina Umar conquered Persia, that when Umar conquered Persia and the palaces of Persia, the jewels of Kisra were brought to Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Umar called for Suraka, and Suraka wore the bracelets of Kisra, just as the Prophet ﷺ had said to Suraka all these years before. So now we see when the Prophet ﷺ, as he draws closer to Medina, he gets to a place called Quba, and he arrives at Quba with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Quba is just outside of Medina. And so the Prophet ﷺ stays here a few days, a number of days, at the house of Kulthum ibn Hidam. And whilst he stays here, Sayyidina Ali arrives as well, whilst the Prophet ﷺ is still at Quba. And so the Prophet asks him that, have you fulfilled your duty? Have you given back all of the trust that were placed with me? And Sayyidina Ali says that he has. And then Sayyidina Ali remains there with the Prophet ﷺ, and that's where they pray the first Jum'ah prayer that was ever prayed. And the Prophet ﷺ gives the khutbah, and this was in Quba, and this is where the masjid was then established, which is Masjid al-Quba, where people, even today, where we go and we pray. And this mosque was established because the Prophet ﷺ has stopped and prayed there on his way to Medina, and this is where he prayed the first Jummah prayer, along with the khutbah. And Allah mentions it in the Quran where He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Al-Masjidu ussisa ala taqwa min awwali yawmin ahaqqu an taquma fihi rijalun yuhibbuna an yatattahharu wallahu yuhibbul muttahhirin. A mosque founded on righteousness from the first day is more worthy for you to stand in. Within it are men who love to purify themselves, and Allah loves those who purify themselves. So this was the first masjid that was established outside, on the way just outside Medina. And so now we see the Prophet ﷺ, news spread to Medina that the Prophet was arriving, and that he had left Mecca, and that he would be arriving in Medina, that he's set on his journey to arrive in Medina. So when the news came to Mecca, the people in Mecca, when the news came to Medina, the people in Medina, they were so overjoyed with the news of the coming and the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ, that they would all go out to the outskirts of the city, and they would wait there early in the morning. So they would go out every morning and wait until it got so hot that they weren't able to wait anymore, and they would have to go back to their homes. And they knew that the Prophet ﷺ would not be coming at that time because it was too hot to travel. And so they would go in the morning, which is the normal time where people would travel, and they would wait there for the Prophet ﷺ. And they would do this every day, hoping to see the Prophet ﷺ arriving. So on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, this is when the Prophet ﷺ, he arrives to Medina, and the people, before they come out, there's a Jewish man who sees in the distance these men walking towards Medina, and he calls the Arabs and he says, that is the king that you've been waiting for, he's the person you've been waiting for, and you've been waiting his arrival, he's on his way. And so now the people come flocking out, and they say the women came out and the children came out, women on the housetops, the children out on the streets, and the men out, and the children climbing onto the trees, onto the palm trees. And people, Medina was all of the people in Medina were on the outskirts of Medina, waiting for the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ. And the men were dressed in their military gear, so they were prepared for the occasion, that they dressed up for the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ. So they dressed in their military gear, welcoming and honouring the Prophet ﷺ. And so when everybody went out and the children were climbing the trees, then they broke out into singing, as we know the famous words, Tala al-Badru alayna. They begin to sing this, the white moon that rose over us, and the Prophet ﷺ is walking in, and they're playing their duffs, they're playing on their dufuf, the leather skin drums. And so you can imagine the scene where the Prophet ﷺ is walking in, and Abu Bakr is walking in, and Ali is with them, karamallahu wajhu, and all of these people of Medina surrounding, joyful, dressed up for the occasion that the Prophet ﷺ is arriving in Medina. And so this is how they welcomed him. And as the Prophet ﷺ came in, he rode in on his camel, and as his camel rode in, people would welcome him, give him salams, and then they would grab the camel by its reins to direct the camel to their house, because they knew that the Prophet ﷺ doesn't have a house in Medina, so where is he going to stay? So they begin to pull its reins, trying to direct the camel to their house, to come and stay with us, come and stay with us. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, leave her, let her be, that she is under command, she is under orders, and that wherever she goes and stops, that's where she's been commanded to go. And so the camel walks through the streets and the alleys of Medina until she reaches a mirbad, which is a place where dates would be, it's an empty plain where dates would be left and dried. And so the camel comes there and kneels down and stops. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, this is where we will stay. And next to the mirbad, in front of it, adjacent to it, is the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. And the mirbad itself, this place where the dates were dried, were owned by two young orphans, Sahal and Suhail. That these two young orphans, they owned this land. So the Prophet ﷺ calls for them, that he wants to purchase this land for the building of his masjid, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that next to it is the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and the Prophet, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub, now takes the reins of the camel, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam descends, and he stays with Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and he enters into the home of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, whose name is Khalid bin Zayd. Now Sayyidina Abu Ayyub was from the Bani Najjar, who were from the maternal uncles of Abdul Muttalib, so a distant relation there to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his grandfather Abdul Muttalib. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam remains and stays now in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. And as we'll speak about as well, that the first thing that he concerns himself with, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the building of the masjid. Before he even thinks about building himself a home, he builds a masjid. So he hasn't even got a place to live yet, and yet he was concerned about worshipping Allah and the people worshipping Allah, and he builds a masjid. This shows the importance of masajid, our mosques, and that these places are sacred. And like for now, alhamdulillah, Allah has closed the doors for us to the masajid, that we can't go there and pray. And this is maybe it's a punishment, and maybe it's an eye-opener for us, that we had left the masajid and Allah has taken them away, and He can take it away and give it back whenever He wishes. So inshallah, it's opened our eyes, and inshallah it's reconnected our hearts to the masajid. And whatever's happened in our masajid up and down the country, or anywhere around the world, we need to know that the masajid belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they do not belong to any committee or any imam or any person who may lay claim to the masjid, because a masjid is a piece of land that has been endowed, which means that it's been given for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we can have caretakers who will take care of it, but they will be held accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to Allah azza wa jal. So these masajids, which Allah calls them the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we are in search, if we are in need of Allah, go to the masjid and connect yourself to the masjid. Forget who's there and what's happened and who said what. That's irrelevant. The masjid doesn't belong to them. The masjid belongs to Allah, so therefore it belongs to all of us. It belongs to the Muslim community, and it's a place for us to connect to. So alhamdulillah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam now stays with Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari for 7 months, whilst the masjid is being built. And whilst he's staying there, and this is on the first night when he's staying there, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see that some young girls who were the neighbors of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, they would come out, and they would, whilst they're playing outside and dancing and playing, they were playing on their drums and saying, they were singing Nahnu Jiwar min Bani Najjar, Ya Habada Muhammad min Jar. So we are girls from Bani Najjar, how lucky are we to have Muhammad as our neighbor. And they would sing and play outside Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's house, singing these rhymes in Arabic. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he hears this, and he comes out and he says to these girls, he says, do you love me? This is how much you love me? And they say, yes, Rasulullah. And he says, Wallahi, Allah knows that how my heart loves you as well. That the whole of Medina was beloved to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because these are the people that gave up everything for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and gave up for this religion. And so they were beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, whilst the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is staying at Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's house, his house is 2 floors. He has a downstairs and an upstairs. And so, as we know that houses back in those days, they weren't bricks and mortar, they were just wood and made out of mud that's mixed with hay and the like and straw, and then they would use what we call mud bricks, and that's how they would build their houses, and then wood and leaves that were used for the roofs. So Sayyidina the Prophet ﷺ is living downstairs, and Sayyidina Ayyub is living upstairs. So he says to the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Ayyub, he comes and he says, Ya Rasulullah, he says, I hate living above you and you living beneath me. It's not suitable that I live above you and I'm above you and you're living beneath me. It's not suitable, so please move upstairs. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says to Sayyidina Abu Ayyub, he says, Abu Ayyub, it's more comfortable for me. I'm more comfortable downstairs. And this is where I like to be. And because I have visitors that come to see me at all times of the day. I'm somebody that has visitors all the time. And if I was upstairs, that I'll be constantly disturbing you because of people coming in and out. And so it's better that I'm downstairs because of the visitors that I have. And so Abu Ayyub understands the Prophet ﷺ situation, and the Prophet ﷺ understands Abu Ayyub, but at the same time the Prophet ﷺ is only caring for Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, that he doesn't want to disturb him and his family and put them out. And so the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Ayyub agree that the Prophet ﷺ will stay downstairs and Abu Ayyub al-Ansari will stay upstairs with his wife. So now saying Abu Ayyub, one night when he's staying upstairs and he's with his family, that they have a jar, a glass jug that is dropped, and it breaks, and the water from inside it falls on the floor. So when it falls on the floor, these are wooden flooring with leaves and the like, it will seep through, and he's concerned that it will fall onto the Prophet ﷺ. And so him and his wife now panic, what are we going to do? It's night time and we need to, we've dropped water and it's going to fall on the Prophet ﷺ. And so they start looking around. They can't find anything to dry up except an expensive sheet, a piece of cloth that they had, that was a velvet cloth. And so this is all they had, and so they took that and they placed it onto the water to dry up the water so it doesn't fall on the Prophet ﷺ. And so the Prophet saying the next morning, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub goes to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, Ya Rasulullah, that please move upstairs. I don't like you living downstairs. That, and he told him, he said, last night water dropped and me and my wife were in panic that it would fall on you, and we didn't know what to do and how to soak it up, and we were worried that you would get wet. And so you see the concern of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Just some droplets will fall of water onto the Prophet ﷺ, and he was concerned about that. And so the Prophet ﷺ saw that this was really distressing Abu Ayyub. So the Prophet ﷺ agrees, and he says, I will live upstairs and you live with your family downstairs. So this is how they continue to live. And so Abu Ayyub then also mentions in a narration that he would send food to the Prophet ﷺ, and that when he would send the food, that his wife would cook and they would send it to the Prophet ﷺ, and he would eat from it, and then he would send it back and he wouldn't finish the plate. Look at the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. He doesn't know if the people that he's staying with have eaten or not, so he wouldn't finish the plate and he would send food back. And then the Sayyidina Abu Ayyub and his wife would eat from the plate of the Prophet ﷺ. And he says, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub, that we would look at the plate and we would move it, and me and my wife would look at it, trying to see where did the Prophet ﷺ eat from, which side did he eat from, and then we would eat from that side. And that they would look at this plate, where are his finger marks, and that's where they would eat from, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, hoping to seek blessings from the food of the Prophet ﷺ. And so this again here we see clearly from this hadith and several other hadith, many other hadith, which talk about what we call tabarruk, seeking blessings from something, such as here where Sayyidina Abu Ayyub is seeking blessings from the food because the Prophet ﷺ ate from it. And this is not shirk, as some people may say, and the like. This has nothing to do with that. It's just seeking blessings which Allah has placed within something, and Allah can place blessings within whatever He pleases. And these the Sahaba were seeking those blessings from the Prophet ﷺ through that food, as Abu Ayyub al-Ansari and his wife were here. There's other hadith which talk about, for example, where Sulaym, that the Prophet ﷺ was asleep at her house once, and when he was asleep, he began to sweat, and he was sleeping on a leather pillow, and that his sweat would fall onto the leather pillow. So she took the leather pillow and she wringed it into a jar and collected the sweat that was falling from the Prophet ﷺ. And when she was doing this, the Prophet ﷺ woke up, and he was in astonishment. He woke up what was going on, and he says to her, Sulaim, what are you doing? And she says that, Ya Rasulullah, I'm collecting your sweat, that I will use it for my children as blessings, that if they're sick or the like, I'll use it as blessings. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, As-Siddi, that you've done good, you've done the right thing. And in another narration, we see where Salama, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, she had some hairs of the Prophet ﷺ, and that after his passing, that when someone was sick, from the companions and the like, when someone was sick in Medina, they would send water to Salama, and that she would soak the hairs into the water, and the water would take from the hairs blessings, and then the sick person, or the person who had this ailment or sickness, they would drink this water to find cure. And so we see here clear hadith of the Sahaba doing tabarruk, seeking blessings from objects. So just as Abu Ayyub al-Ansari and his wife did, they would seek blessings from the leftover food of the Prophet ﷺ. So now Abu Ayyub, he says that once my wife sent some food. She had cooked in that, she had used onions and garlic in that food, and so we sent it to the Prophet ﷺ, this dish that contained onion and garlic, and then he sent it back to us, and Abu Ayyub says that it was left untouched, that the Prophet ﷺ had not eaten anything from it. And so Abu Ayyub is now concerned, why has the Prophet ﷺ not eaten from today? And so he asks the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Ya Rasulullah, that why didn't we sent you food but you didn't touch it? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he says, I smelt the odor, and he says, I'm a man who has many guests, but as for you, feel free to eat it. That because there was onions and garlics in there, that he has guests, and because he has guests, he doesn't want to put them off with a bad odor, that if he used to eat the onion and garlic and give them a bad odor. Like the Prophet ﷺ, we have to remember here, he smells of musk, he's sweeter than musk, his scent is sweeter than musk, and his scent would overcome any scent. So even if he ate the onion and garlic, would it have even effect upon the one that is sweeter than musk? No, it wouldn't. So this was a lesson for us, and everything that he did was a lesson for us, and he was teaching us, but it was a lesson for us that somebody who has guests and the like and meets lots of people, that avoid eating onion and garlic when you'll be meeting people. So if you were to go out, and this is when, especially when we go to the mosque, that we should not eat onion and garlic and go to the mosque, because we will let off bad odor. And alhamdulillah, maybe this year we, due to the lockdown, we are somewhat saved from the bad odors and the burps that we get in Taraweeh. But again, people forget the etiquette of the Prophet ﷺ. We fast and then we quickly put food into our stomach, forgetting the etiquette and adab of the Prophet ﷺ, that he was the most concerned with other people ﷺ, so he didn't eat onion and garlic. And so we should follow in that sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that if we're going somewhere, we should avoid eating onion and garlic if we're meeting people. So now, in regards to Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, they say that, as we all know, his grave is famous in Fatih district in Istanbul, and he lived a long life, alhamdulillah, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And after the conquering of Egypt, he moved to Egypt, and then he had a long military campaign, and they say that he didn't miss a single battle after the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, or during the life of the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't miss a single battle, except if he was involved in another battle that he would have missed that battle. So he was always involved in in a battle, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And in 49 Hijri, he went with the army, the Muslim army, to the Byzantine, which is now Istanbul or Turkey. And they say he fought so hard, and he was old, and he fought hard until he fell ill. And he said to the Muslims that the Muslims army that was with him, he said that fight as hard as you can and penetrate the enemy as much as you can and go as further as you can, and as far as you get, that's where you'll bury me. That I'm going to die, but bury me at the furthest point you get, because this will be, his grave will be a sign of the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is where his message, this is where the risal, the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached. And so he was buried all the way, if you think about it, Constantinople, which it was at the time, and the Byzantine Empire and the East Roman Empire, how huge it was. They ruled a huge area much further south than that, and yet he was buried in pretty much just outside Constantinople, which it would have been at the time, Istanbul. So we see then, and it mentions that even the Romans, that they honored the grave of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, as they never desecrated it, and they marked it because they saw him as a fierce warrior, and they respected him for that, and that he was buried at that point. And that's why we still know where that grave is today, because that area wasn't conquered immediately at that time, and rather Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's grave was there on its own, still in non-Muslim lands, until the Muslims then fought further and they conquered that area. So we see this great Sahabi who was buried there, and he was even honoured by the Romans, by the non-Muslims themselves, for his bravery, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And that was all for the sake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for the sake of this religion. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. And inshallah, we will tomorrow look at the building of the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his primary concern as he arrived into Medina sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اقترفنا وأننا أسرفنا ألا لظى أشرفنا فتوب علينا توبة تغسل كل هوبة واسترنا العورات وأمرات واغفر لوالدينا ربي ومولودينا وأهلي والإخوان وسائر الخلان وكل ذي محبة أو جيرة وصحبة والمسلمين أجمع آمين ربي اسمع فضلا وجودا منا لا باكتساب منا بالمصطفى رسولي نحظى بكل سولي بالمصطفى رسولي نحظى بكل سولي بالمصطفى رسولي نحظى بكل سولي وصلى وسلم ربي عليه أدى الهبي وآله وصحبه إدادة الشصحبه والحمد لله في البدء والتناهي سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشي ومداد كلماتي اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه. الفاتحة.